very nervous and anxious about having to go back in time. I often wonder why Nathaniel didn't kill me. This was the very man that I brought into their lives. I was just devastated, lost, because he's taken so much from me. All I had to give was love, and in return, I lost everything.
It seemed like once I started smelling blood, I just completely bugged out.
That's evil. I see evil in his eyes. Between the time I met him and the time he wound up here, he changed. I never believed in evil before. I didn't think that it would come to my doorstep, but it was around me and I invited it in. And this is the consequence. I was a single mother raising 2 children, and my cousin came one evening on my birthday and wanted to take me out. And I hadn't been out in so long that I decided to go.
I'm so happy you came today.
I mean, I'm worried about the kids.
We were there together for a while, and then she met someone, and she went off, and I sat there, and then Nathaniel approached me.
Mind if I buy you a drink?
Sure.
He was very attractive and well-dressed, and I wasn't used to that sort of attention. It had been some time since I had been with anybody since my divorce. It made me feel good. When we were leaving, he asked for my phone number.
Joe.
Nathaniel.
After 6 months of phone calls and him coming to visit on the weekend, I started to fall in love with him. And so I decided that it was all right for him to move in. This picture is when I first met him. He was very polite, timid and shy at first. I felt safe and I felt loved. I thought he was a keeper. After Nathaniel moved in, it was a little difficult for him to find work, and the bills were piling up, and we were starting to get frustrated. He'd go out all day looking for these jobs, applying, and nobody was calling, and he was getting anxious. And one time, we were preparing breakfast, and there was a knock at the door.
Don't get up, I got it.
And I answered it, and it happened to be the police.
Good morning, officers. Is everything okay?
Ma'am, are you home alone?
No, I'm here with my boyfriend, Nathaniel.
What's this? What's going on?
And they said, would you mind coming with us because we have a complaint that you were seen robbing the convenience store. At that time, I felt that that was strange because I didn't think, I said, no, he's been here. I don't think you have the right person.
Hey, baby, tell them that you would never do that.
Man, relax.
Baby.
He says, yeah, I did rob the convenience store because we didn't have any money.
Baby, how could you do something like this?
I had to take care of us.
I was mad at him and couldn't understand why he would do something like that. We were having financial difficulties, but I mean, you don't go rob a store.
You have to come with us, though.
He chalked it up as a dumb mistake. He said he was angry at himself for doing something like that.
Stop.
I was sympathetic because I knew the position that we were in and he was unemployed. And so they took him away in handcuffs and he had to go to jail. He didn't have a gun, and this was his first offense. So it was only a few months that he was gone. I blamed myself. I was the one that mentioned about how finances were tight with him not working. He made a mistake and he had to pay for it. So your time for this, and I'll get you a job and things will work out.
Well,
What is this?
just go ahead and take a look.
Okay. I helped Nathaniel get a job and everything was going better for him. So he said, I'm going to buy you some outfits to dress you up because we're going to be going out.
Oh,
Nice.
this is short.
But Nathaniel would pick out risque dresses that were really short above the knee and real sexy, and I felt a little apprehensive.
Baby, but this is not my style. Like, where am
Come
I?
on, baby. You know you got the body for these. Just try it on, okay?
I said, well, aren't they kind of short? He said, no, that's how they're wearing them now. And so I try him on, and he said, oh, perfect, you look sexy, you look good. So I wanted to please him, so I went along with it. The next day was the basketball tournament, and we always went to the park on the weekend. He says, well, here, I want you to wear one of these outfits. And I said, well, to the park?
Let's see if I...
They weren't really appropriate for a playground and a park. But I went along with it because he wanted me to look good and I wanted to please him. So I wore it to the park. He was playing basketball and I was watching the game, and people that knew me that aren't used to me wearing that type of thing then began to approach me.
Damn, Jill. You looking fine.
Thank you.
And Nathaniel noticed that they were noticing me. And he's not pleased at all. I could see it in his face. The basketball game ended, and he says, I don't like the idea that all these guys are talking to you. And he started to get angry.
It's not okay to do that.
To do what?
You know exactly what's going on.
You're supposed to be paying attention to me. You don't know how to act. And I was surprised because I had never witnessed this jealous rage before and his demeanor changing so quickly. And I said, well, I'm trying to please you. I can't help if other people are looking at me. It's the way you got me dressed.
I didn't want to wear this stupid dress.
Don't blame it on the dress. You just don't talk to other guys. You need to learn how to behave.
All right.
And I tried to smooth things over with him and say, well, you know, I won't talk to nobody. I'll stand over to the side and I'll watch you play basketball.
I just want to make you happy.
Well, I'm not happy.
Baby.
He would calm down and we would be okay again until it was time to go somewhere else in one of those dresses. He would get jealous and he would get agitated and he would get mean. It was like a light switch. It got to where I didn't know how to act. I just didn't want him to be angry. I just wanted everything to be okay. One evening, my brother's daughter, Christine, came over to play with my daughters. We were all in a good mood, and Nathaniel was playing with the girls, and they're laughing and having a good time. And they were roughhousing and playing hide and seek and tag in the house.
Where are you?
So then that evening, it was time for Christine to go back home. When she got home, my brother's calling me,
Hello?
telling me she had said that he had touched her inappropriately.
Uh-oh, I saw you look at your car.
Nathaniel was there, and so I asked him while I was still on the phone.
Nathaniel.
Yeah.
I said, Nathan, my brother's saying that you touched Christine inappropriately.
What? I don't know why he would say that, okay?
He said, no, we were just wrestling and stuff. She must have mistaken. He said, I wasn't trying to touch her or anything. Then my daughters were there, and they backed Nathan up by saying, oh, no, we were just playing rough. We were playing tag and stuff. And my brother said, well, I don't know. She just won't be coming over for a while. And I felt funny about it, but the girls backed him up, my daughters. But I thought perhaps it's a mistake, probably just playing tag, and she just mistaked it. And so she didn't come over for a while after that. A few months go by, and the next thing we know that Christine is missing. And one day she said she was going to her friends and she never came home. This is a picture of my niece Christine. This is the time when she spent a lot of time at my house with the girls. Happier moment. I remember the day that this newspaper came out. I went out to get the paper that morning, and I noticed that there was an article about Christine missing. We went to my brother's house, and Nathan was with me. There was a large search. Everybody that knew Christine was looking for her. Even the police was looking for her.
I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, she said she was going over to her friends.
Nobody knew where she was. She's 14 years old, so teenager. Maybe she ran away, maybe she's hanging with the wrong crowd, maybe she don't want to come home.
I just don't understand how she could run off like this.
I don't know either. See.
Nathaniel was very concerned, and they had asked Nathan, have you seen Christine? And he said, no, but I'll keep an eye out for her. If I hear anything or see anything, I'll let you know. I'm going to help look, too. He seemed concerned like we were all concerned.
I really am grateful for all the help.
Of course. It's the least we can do. Christine is family, right?
Don't worry, we're gonna find her.
As a family, we went out in search of her and then reached out to people that knew Christine to see if they could further help out in the search. She never turned up after a few weeks or a month or so. And the police didn't resolve anything, so she became a missing person. Everybody believed that she had ran away or she was at somebody's house and didn't want to come home. Nathaniel's demeanor changed. He was more distant. He started to stay out more and more. Began to be almost every evening. He wouldn't come in until after 10 o'clock at night.
Looks like somebody found their way home.
Sorry. Lost track of time.
And I questioned it, and I said, oh, gee, you played basketball awfully late. And he said, we played several games. He said, I stayed till the end.
Well, you do know you have a life here outside of the game?
What? I got a curfew now?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Then what are you saying?
It seemed as if his mood was always on edge, very anxious.
Huh?
Never mind. I'm sorry.
I believed Nathaniel because I didn't know too much about the basketball and the leagues, and I just figured he knew more about it than me. And I took him at his word. There was a knock at the door mid-morning, and it was the police. And I'm like, oh, now this is the second time with this police business.
So, what's this about?
The police said that they had a complaint that a young woman said that you were trying to kidnap her.
Will?
Excuse me?
She's detailed an incident that happened in a car. Do you have any recollection of that?
He said he went to the convenience store to pick up some beer, and he saw a girl walking, and he pulled over and asked the young lady if she wanted a ride because it was dark and it wasn't safe.
She's telling us it was more than just a ride, sir.
She saw me leaving in the parking lot and asked me for a ride, and I said sure.
But the policeman said that the young girl's complaint was that she accepted the ride, but once she got in the car, he was holding her against her will and wouldn't let her go. And then when the opportunity presented itself, she got out of the car and went directly to the police and complained. She's got it wrong. He says, I gave her a ride. I wasn't holding her against her will. And they said, well, would you mind coming to the station with us?
All right, let's go.
I'll be back, babe. Don't worry about it.
And they took him. And I'm thinking, did he really try to kidnap some woman in the nighttime? That was hard for me to accept that he would do something like that. You're sort of caught in the spider's web, and so now you just want to please him, and so you reason anything away. And that's what I was doing. I reasoned it away. I said, well, maybe it really didn't happen.
Seriously?
It's fine, because you know what? I made a decision.
I had a good friend named Lorette, and she would come over from time to time because her kids played with mine. And she was going to move to the West Indies.
I can't take this cold anymore.
Okay. Wow.
And she wondered if we had any boxes and things to help her move.
Hey, found some boxes.
He wanted to help her in any way, and so Nathaniel went over to help her with the boxes and help her move. And then when she said she'd say goodbye when they were all set to go, her and the kids. About a week or so passed by, and I was waiting to hear back from her when she was going to leave so I could say goodbye.
What is it?
And then I received the paper one Sunday, and the front page had announced that Lorette had been killed in her apartment.
Oh my God.
I got my Sunday paper,
What is it?
and I see a big article about how Lorette had been murdered in her apartment. And I'm reading this to Nathaniel, and he says, oh, wow, she was okay when I dropped off the boxes. I wonder what could have happened to her.
This is awful. I don't know who would have anything against her.
I'm thinking, well, maybe she got into it with somebody because she was a very flirtatious woman. And I said, but this is a tragedy. It's really terrible. I was devastated that my friend was gone. I was like, wow, first Christine goes missing, and then my friend Lorette is gone. I said, I want to go to the services, to the funeral and all.
I'm not going to be able to go, Jill.
What do you mean?
But Nathaniel said, oh no, we shouldn't do that. I think we should stay away from that because they'll have a lot of police, and I have a record.
You think people are going to want me there?
Who would care?
Trust me, I don't want any trouble.
I kind of was mad and I wanted to go. I said, she was a good friend of ours. And he continued to eat his breakfast and say, no, that's not really a good idea, because people were always accusing him of different things. False accusations, just looking for someone to blame. So we should not be involved in anything that they're still investigating. And he convinced me, so we didn't go.
The girl's body was found in a field in the small upstate town of Goshen, along with the bodies of 2 others. A few miles away in Middletown, 3 other women were found.
I started noticing that several young girls were missing, and a few of them were found dead.
Word that many of these cases share similar details and that police are cautioning that this may not be a coincidence.
And they felt that there was a serial killer on the loose. I said, we need to lock the doors.
But the girls, they walk home alone and...
I'll protect you all.
But I wasn't overly concerned because Nathan was there to protect us. As long as Nathan's here, we'll be all right.
Remain vigilant and alert at all times.
A few nights he would come in late from playing his league ball, and one particular day he had 2 deep scratches on his forearm.
Baby, that looks bad.
Oh, yeah, just...
And I said, oh man, what happened to your arm? It's all scratched up. He said, they tried to get the ball away from me and they scratched me in the process. I said, boy, they play that rough? And he says, yeah, sometimes. And I didn't pay much attention to that. I said, yeah, they do play rough.
I'm good, baby. It's nothing.
I knew about the women that have been missing, but it never occurred to me that the 2 were linked together. Who would think that their partner was a killer? I worked nights, and I left Nathaniel to watch the children overnight. But there were occasions when I'm getting ready for work, and the girls were still awake, and they were upset.
Girls, what are you doing up? It's late.
Don't go to work, please.
They said, oh, Mommy, we don't want you to go. We want you to stay home. We want you to stay home. And I couldn't understand that at that time, but I just figured that they just wanted me to spend more time with them.
No.
And I said, well, I gotta go to work, you know, that's what I do. I gotta work at night. You'll be all right.
Calm down, calm down.
Nathaniel's here to watch you, so everything will be okay.
Hey, no, you'll be fine.
And I'll be here in the morning to put you on the bus and get you ready.
Work.
But no, they were not having it. They cried and cried, and I said, oh man, okay, I'll call in this night. But I can't keep doing this because then I'll lose my job, girls. So I asked Nathaniel, what's going on with the kids? He just brushed it off, and he says, oh, they'll be all right. I was waiting for the girls to come home one afternoon, and they never came. So the bus must be late or something must be wrong with the bus. And it got later and later, and it was after 4 o'clock, and so I called the school.
I'm calling because my girls didn't come home from school today.
The principal told me that my daughter went to the teacher and said that she didn't want to go home because she was being abused. Nathaniel was touching her in the nighttime, that she was being physically abused. And he said, your children won't be coming home. We can't tell you where they're going, but they're not coming home. You follow up with CPS and they'll tell you what to do.
Can I please just speak to my girls, please?
And so I was hysterical. All I did was cry. My children are being taken away. I never thought in my mind that Nathaniel was actually abusing my children. It never occurred to me.
Hello?
And so I hung up with the school and directed my anger toward Nathaniel.
What did you do? You know what you did.
I'm screaming at him, and my children are saying they're abused and they don't want to come home. This is because of you. And Nathaniel's trying to smooth things over, and he says, well, we'll go to the school and we'll find out further about the children. And I'm crying in hysterics still.
Get in the car, Nathaniel.
So we proceed in the car, and all of a sudden, in a rush, 2 cars blocked our car from going any further.
What is going on? What's going on?
And these men in these suits, and they rushed out of their cars, and they pulled him out of the driver's seat. They said, we're doing an investigation about the missing women. And I'm crying, and I'm like, what the heck is going on?
What is this? What is this?
As soon as we get to the end of the road, they pull out and block our car in. 2 detectives got out of the car, and they went to the driver's side.
Don't move. Let me see your hands.
What is happening? What's happening, Nathaniel?
And they take him and put handcuffs on him.
Nathaniel!
The other detective opened my door and grabbed my arm and told me I had to go with him.
Nathaniel!
And they take us to the state trooper barracks. The detective comes in the room, it's almost morning, telling me that he confessed to killing these several women that have been missing. And that he was a serial killer.
The bodies of 6 women have been recovered in the Middletown, New York area, and this man is believed to be responsible for the slayings.
According to police, when Nathaniel White was taken into custody for a murder north of New York, he confessed to 5 others.
Local police are speaking with the FBI to see whether White can be tied to other murders.
It's not possible.
I'm afraid so.
I know Nathaniel, he would never do this.
He's detailed it.
I was in denial, I was in shock. It was hard for me to grasp that. I just really didn't believe what they were telling me. All I could do was cry, and I was a nervous wreck, and I said, God, this can't be happening. I was coming from the police station. They were taking me home. There was this back road. It was a shortcut. And we were riding down that road, and the next thing I know, I look to the side, and there he is, in an orange jumpsuit, And he was taking them up in the woods so he could show where he dumped all these bodies. I started to think back about the first time he got arrested.
Good morning, officers.
And about the first girl that got away and said he was trying to kidnap her and all the lies he told me. And about Lorette.
I'll help you out for that.
But I didn't want to look. Didn't want to look at all. I just couldn't believe it. That I could have been so blind and I didn't realize. And I kept trying to help this man. I always defended him. I always stood up for him. I was just devastated. And then they took me back to my house, gave me a search warrant, and searched the premises and took whatever they needed to take for their investigation. I didn't want to go back to that big house where we had been staying, so I decided to go and stay at my parents' house where my older brother also stays.
Now, of course, there are multiple reasons why the authorities...
And then there it was on the news.
32-year-old Nathaniel White of Middletown, New York, is the serial killer who has confessed to murdering 6 young women.
I was like in a state of shock. I couldn't really believe that he had killed all those women while he was with me.
Authorities believe White would have continued killing if the Poughkeepsie police had not received the anonymous tip that led to his capture.
I wonder why is it that they got killed and I didn't? Because I was the one closest to him. And they showed him confessing in the whole bit.
I just would drive around and I would see a girl and I would talk to her, and once I got in my car, we would go someplace and I just snapped. No reason for it, or I don't know where it come from.
Nathaniel confessed to killing 6 women, including my friend Laura. My parents asked me, didn't I know? And I said, no, I did not realize that I was with a killer.
All I know is that while I'm doing it, it's like I enjoy it. It's like it stimulates me or something. And then it seems like a dream. And after it's over, that's when the remorse comes. That's when I feel sorry, for what I've done, and I don't believe it. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I'll get that. Hello?
The phone rang, and my older brother answered it, and it happened to be the detectives to tell him that his missing daughter was one of the victims that Nathaniel had killed.
Christine was one of the victims. Hello?
The investigators have called my older brother to tell him that Nathaniel had murdered his daughter. He didn't look at me. He just looked distraught.
It was a detective. He said that Christine was one of the victims.
He told my parents that Christine was dead and that he had to go and get Christine's mother so that he could tell her. They're all in a state of shock as well as I am. I couldn't think, all I did was rock and cry. I was devastated. That was all my fault. Then I said, I'm sorry. Because I'm the one that brought him into our lives. And my brother didn't look at me, he didn't say anything. He just continued on to what he had to do.
The youngest of Nathaniel White's 6 victims was laid to rest today at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. The mother and father of 14-year-old Christine Klebe followed the coffin as their daughter was buried behind the church where she made her first communion.
I wanted to be at the funeral so that I could say goodbye to Christine. So I could say goodbye to my niece. My brother doesn't say anything to me. Didn't verbally speak to me, didn't look at me, nothing. And to this day, he doesn't speak about it. He barely speaks to me, I barely see him. So when I got to the church, as soon as I was around the casket, that's when people came up to me and they were accusing me. How could I have let this happen? They couldn't understand how I could not know that this man was out there murdering people and that I still was with him. And I did not know.
Jill Garrison, Christine's aunt and the longtime girlfriend of Nathaniel White, was clearly distraught over having brought the killer into the family.
I brought that man into their lives and caused all of this. I met him and brought him from out of town into our town around people that I knew and entrusted him. They all looked at the same person that I looked at and thought he was charming and kind. But he wasn't. He was the devil in disguise. I see myself in those women. Because we were innocent and naive and didn't believe that there was such evil in the world. I didn't realize that this evil force was right there in my house. I went to go see Nathaniel while he was incarcerated because I wanted to see if he would look me in the eye and tell me the truth. I said, well, how could you do these things? I want to hear from you.
Why would you murder all those girls?
Baby, you know I wouldn't do that.
And he still sat there and lied to me. And he said, I didn't do it. It's a mistake. All I was really looking for was for this man to tell me the truth in my face after all the time we had been together, and you're going to sit there and tell me there's a mistake again when you confess.
Baby, you know I wouldn't do that. This was all wrong, okay? I'm innocent. You know that.
Then why would you go and confess to the news?
And he said, oh, they pressured me. I had to confess. Which I knew at that point was a lie.
I can't.
No, come on, don't leave. Just stay and talk to me.
So it was kind of a waste of time to even go. I got my children back. But the relationship wasn't the same. I told my daughters I was sorry that I wasn't there and I couldn't see and I couldn't protect them. But no apology in the world's gonna erase the fact that they got abused and I was supposed to be their protector and I didn't protect them. And I have to own up to that. It's taken years for us to regain the trust and the love and the bond that we had when we were together in the beginning. But the bond is not the same. It's not as strong as it used to be. They're always fearful too now, just like me. They have that fear that he'll come back. He's still trying to get parole. After all of these years, I still fear if he ever got out, I would be the next target.
It began with a sound no one heard, a struggle muffled by the hum of a quiet suburban night. August 17th, 1985, San Gabriel Valley, California. A neighborhood wrapped in routine, the kind where porch lights flickered on at dusk and the same dogs barked at passing cars. But that night, one light stayed on longer than the rest. Inside a small beige house at the end of Sycamore Drive, something unspeakable happened. The next morning, the mailman noticed the front door half open. He thought nothing of it. Maybe someone had left in a hurry. But by noon, the silence became too heavy to ignore. A friend stopped by to check in and found the door still ajar, the morning newspaper untouched. She stepped inside and froze. The living room looked normal. At first, a cup of coffee half finished on the table, a radio humming low. But in the hallway, the scene changed. A chair knocked over, a faint trail red drying leading toward the bedroom. The friend's scream cut through the still air, drawing neighbors from their homes. Within minutes, police cars filled the narrow street. The peace of the neighborhood shattered. Inside the bedroom lay Lisa Monroe, 27 years old. Beloved by everyone on the block, a teacher newly married, kind to everyone. Now she was gone, her body cold, her face bruised, her hands bound with something that looked like electrical cord. There was no forced entry, no sign of a break-in. The killer had been inside with her. Detectives arrived before sunset. Cameras flashed, whispers spread. The coroner's van drove away as the street grew darker, leaving only questions and fear. Who could have done this and why? Neighbors lined the sidewalks, their faces pale. She never hurt anyone, someone said. We just saw her yesterday. But beneath their shock, suspicion began to grow. A crime this brutal couldn't have been random. Detective Michael Hayes, newly transferred from Los Angeles, took the lead. He scanned the scene with practiced calm, but even he felt the unease in the air. The house was tidy, almost staged. Nothing stolen. Jewelry untouched. Purse still on the counter. Whoever killed Lisa knew her. He knelt beside the overturned chair. The floor beneath it was sticky. He followed the faint marks toward the back door, but it was locked from the inside. No escape route, no footprints, no fingerprints worth saving. Forensics moved quietly around him, collecting fibers, swabbing surfaces, bagging samples that might one day tell a story. But back in 1985, technology could only go so far. DNA was still a mystery to most detectives. Evidence was fragile. Time was the enemy. The first suspect was her husband, Mark Monroe. He was away that weekend on a fishing trip with coworkers 3 hours north. He returned when police called, his face pale and voice trembling. "Lisa's dead," he whispered, as if saying it made it real. The detectives questioned him for hours. His alibi checked out. Receipts, witnesses, everything solid. He was released, but not without suspicion. Then came the neighbors. Interviews stretched late into the night. One woman mentioned a strange car parked on the street the night before, dark blue, maybe a sedan, maybe a pickup, she couldn't tell. Another said she heard something like a door slam around midnight, but no one saw a person. No one saw a struggle. Just fragments of noise swallowed by the night. Days turned into weeks. Leads dried up. The autopsy revealed Lisa had been strangled. There were signs of struggle, defensive wounds, but no trace of sexual assault. The killer had taken his time, then left quietly. It didn't fit the pattern of a burglary or a random act. It was personal. Detective Hayes grew obsessed. He carried Lisa's photo everywhere, a reminder of the case that haunted him. He visited the Monroe's friends' co-workers, even former students. Nothing. Every clue led to another dead end. Then, 3 months later, a letter arrived at the police station. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper typed in uneven letters. You're looking in the wrong direction. No signature, no fingerprints, no trace. Just that one line, like a taunt. The message spread through the department like wildfire. Some thought it was a hoax, a cruel prank by someone seeking attention. But Hayes didn't think so. He believed the killer was watching, someone who lived close enough to know the investigation had stalled. He canvassed the neighborhood again. On Sycamore Drive, every face looked nervous now. People whispered about the letter, about who might have sent it. Fear seeped into every conversation. Then one night, Hayes parked his car at the end of the street and waited. Hours passed. The neighborhood fell silent. Around 2 a.m., a porch light flicked on the house next door to Lisa's. A man stepped outside to smoke, glancing up and down the street. His name was Tom Grady, 34, a quiet man who had known Lisa for years. They'd grown up together, gone to the same high school. He'd helped her husband fix their fence once. Hayes noted it in his report, just a routine observation. But something about Grady bothered him. When questioned earlier, he'd been calm, almost detached. He said he was home asleep that night alone, no alibi. But there was no evidence against him either. Months passed. The case went cold. Files were boxed, labeled, and stored in the evidence room. Another murder unsolved, another name added to California's long list of mysteries. But for Lisa's family, the story never ended. Her mother kept her daughter's picture on the mantel candles, burning every night. Someone out there knows she told reporters her voice shaking, and one day they'll be caught. Years rolled on. The world changed. Technology advanced. Detectives retired the files, gathered dust. Yet every anniversary, a small bouquet appeared on Lisa's doorstep. No note, no signature. Just white lilies, her favorite flower. People whispered that it was her husband paying tribute. Others said it was guilt. But no one ever saw who left them. By 1995, Detective Hayes had moved on to other cases, but Lisa's photo still hung in his office, a reminder of the one he couldn't solve, a scar on his record and in his conscience. He'd open the file sometimes, flipping through the yellowing photos, wondering what he'd missed. It would take another 2 decades before the answer would surface, not through confession, not through luck, but through something far colder, more precise. A single strand of DNA. But in 1985, that was still science fiction. For now, the killer walked free. Watching, perhaps, waiting, maybe even standing among the mourners at Lisa's funeral, head bowed, tears, false eyes dry. The town learned to move on, or at least to pretend. But beneath every friendly smile, every polite wave, there lingered a quiet dread. Because once evil visits a place like Sycamore Drive, it never really leaves. The case file closed, stamped in red ink, unsolved, and the whispers began to fade. Until 34 years later, when a call from a forensics lab in Sacramento would change everything. But that's another night, another story. One that begins where the last breath of 1985 still echoes in the dark. 34 years later, California had changed. The quiet suburbs had grown denser, louder, older, but Sycamore Drive still looked the same. The same cracked sidewalks. The same oak trees bending under time. The same house beige paint peeling standing like a monument to a story no one wanted to remember. Detective Rachel Vaughn stood at the edge of that driveway in the fall of 2019. She wasn't even born when Lisa Monroe died, but the file had haunted her since the academy. She had a habit of pulling old boxes from archives, chasing ghosts most people had forgotten. When she reopened the Monroe case, her colleagues rolled their eyes. Cold, since the Reagan years, one said, "You're wasting your time." But Rachel didn't believe in wasting time, she believed in unfinished business. The first thing she noticed about the old file wasn't the photos or the reports. It was the letter. That one sheet of paper that read, "You're looking in the wrong direction." It was typed on a machine, the kind no one used anymore. but the spacing between letters was unique, uneven, like the keys had been struck at different angles. To Rachel, it wasn't just a taunt, it was a fingerprint made of ink. She sent it to the new lab in Sacramento, asking for a full forensic re-examination. The technician smiled when he saw the date. 1985, he said. Vintage crime. They joked, but both knew what this could mean. DNA technology had evolved beyond imagination. What was invisible then could now tell a story down to the cell. Inside a sealed evidence bag lay a small piece of rope, the cord used to bind Lisa's hands. It had been stored in a climate-controlled room all those years. Rachel ordered a full extraction test. It took weeks, maybe months. Every morning she checked her inbox like a ritual. Nothing. Then, one gray morning in February, the call came. "Detective Vaughn," the voice said, calm, steady. "We've got a hit." Her pulse spiked. A hit? From what? The rope. "There's DNA partial, but enough. It matches an unknown male profile in CODIS. No direct name yet, but we're running it through the genealogical database. You might want to sit down." Rachel didn't sit. She paced. She'd read about cases cracked by DNA ancestry before killers found through cousins, distant relatives, people uploading their family trees online for fun. Science had turned genealogy into justice, and now that same web of shared bloodlines might finally reveal who killed Lisa Monroe. Days passed. Then the name appeared: Thomas Grady, the neighbor. The man who'd smoked on his porch the night Detective Hayes had waited in his car. The man who'd helped fix the fence. Rachel stared at the screen, goosebumps rising on her arms. She pulled the old transcript from 1985 Grady's interview. His answers were short, polite, emotionless. He'd said he was home that night alone. No one could confirm. He'd moved out a year later, remarried, left the state. Now records showed he lived in Oregon, married again, 2 kids, no criminal history, a quiet life. Rachel called her supervisor. "I think I found him," she said. The line went silent. Then, "You sure?" "As sure as DNA can be." 2 days later, she was on a flight to Portland, the case file tucked in her bag like a time capsule. She kept glancing at the mugshot of the young Grady, short hair, narrow eyes, faint smile. He looked harmless. But that's what everyone said back then. She arrived at dawn, gray clouds hanging low. Local police helped coordinate surveillance. Grady lived in a modest house on the edge of a cul-de-sac, almost identical to the one he'd left behind in California. He worked at a hardware store. Every morning he packed a lunch, kissed his wife, and drove away. Normal. Ordinary. But monsters often are. Rachel waited 3 days watching his routine. On the 4th, she knocked on his door. He answered, still in his work uniform, eyes puzzled. "Thomas Grady." "Yes." She flashed her badge. "I'm Detective Rachel Vaughn, Los Angeles County Cold Case Division. Mind if I ask you a few questions?" He hesitated. "What's this about?" "An old case. San Gabriel Valley, 1985. His face changed, just slightly a flicker like a shadow crossing light. "That was a long time ago." "Yes," she said, "but sometimes the past doesn't stay buried." He invited her in. The living room smelled of coffee and lemon polish. Family photos lined the mantel. A man who'd built a new life erased the old one. She set a small recorder on the table. "Do you remember Lisa Monroe?" He looked down. "Of course. She lived next door. Terrible thing that happened." "Were you close?" "Neighbors, that's all." "You ever go inside her house?" "Maybe once or twice. Helped her husband with the fence. Why?" Rachel leaned back. "We found your DNA." The silence that followed felt heavy, suffocating. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stared. "That's impossible," he said finally. "It's not," Rachel replied. "It was on the cord used to bind her hands." His jaw tightened. His fingers tapped the table. Then he stood. "You should go." She didn't move. "You were 29 then, right? You told the detectives you were asleep that night, but the tests say otherwise." He turned toward the window, face pale. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Then help me understand." He stayed silent. Moments later, uniformed officers entered quietly through the door. They'd been waiting outside the whole time. Grady didn't resist when they cuffed him. He just stared at Rachel and said, almost whispering, "You have no proof of what happened. Only what you think happened." At the station, as the clock ticked past midnight, Rachel replayed the audio. His tone, his pauses, the way he avoided saying Lisa's name, it all told a story. But she needed more. Back in California, she reopened every scrap of evidence. The original photographs, the fingerprints, the letters, and in one overlooked envelope, she found something strange, a partial print on the back of the anonymous note. It had been too faint for analysis in 1985, but with modern imaging, the lab pulled it up clear as day. It matched Grady's left thumb. The case broke open. News spread like wildfire. California 1985 cold case solved, suspect turns out to be family friend. The headline hit every major outlet, reviving memories people had tried to forget. Neighbors who were children then spoke to reporters, now describing the fear, the candlelight vigils, the unanswered questions. Lisa's mother, now in her 80s, wept when she heard. "I knew he was close to her," she said softly. "Too close." At the arraignment, Grady stood silent as the charges were read: first-degree murder, premeditated assault, tampering with evidence. His lawyer argued that DNA could be contaminated, that the rope had been stored for decades. But the science was too strong, too precise. In court, the prosecution painted a chilling picture. Grady had visited Lisa that night under the guise of friendship. Her husband was away. A conversation turned argument. Something snapped. And when it was over, he staged the scene to look like a break-in. But he left behind the one thing he couldn't control himself in: microscopic traces. Rachel sat through every minute, her notebook filled with details. She wasn't there in 1985, but she carried their ghosts now. When the verdict came, the courtroom was silent. Guilty. Outside, reporters swarmed. Flashbulbs, microphones, chaos. Through it all, Rachel looked down at her notes at the final line of her report: case closed. Justice, 34 years delayed. But closure never really comes. Later that night, she drove to Sycamore Drive. The street was quiet again. The beige house, empty. Wind rustled through the trees, carrying whispers of a name that had haunted the valley for decades. On the porch lay a single bouquet, white lilies. She picked one up gently. The petals were fresh. Someone had been there recently. And as she looked around the darkened street, a thought crept in like a chill. Maybe the past doesn't stay buried because someone always keeps it alive. The verdict echoed through the courtroom, but outside silence settled over Sycamore Drive once again. 34 years of waiting, and the monster next door finally had a name. Thomas Grady, convicted killer. The story should have ended there, but in cases like this, the truth never ends cleanly. It frays like old rope. Detective Rachel Vaughn stood in the back of the courtroom that day, watching Grady as the deputies led him away. He didn't flinch, didn't speak, didn't turn his head to look at the gallery or at the family of the woman he'd killed. Just that same stillness, like someone already living elsewhere, outside of time, outside of guilt. That night, as the cameras faded and the news vans rolled away, Rachel sat in her car outside the police department. The rain hit the windshield like static. She replayed the tape of Grady's interrogation for the 100th time. There was something in his voice she couldn't shake, not denial, not anger, something colder. He'd said one thing that wasn't in any report. "You have no proof of what happened. Only what you think happened." It wasn't arrogance, it was certainty. Rachel turned off the tape and stared at the caseboard. Lisa's photo, the rope, the typed letter. Forensics had matched Grady's thumbprint to that letter, yes. His DNA was on the cord, yes. But there was something else. The lab had found 2 DNA profiles, one male dominant Grady's, the other faint, partial, unidentified. She brought it up during trial prep, but it was inconclusive. The secondary sample was too degraded for comparison. The prosecutor told her not to overcomplicate it. "We've got our man," he said. "Don't dig holes where you don't need to." But that's what Rachel did best. She dug. After the trial, she requested the full evidence report again. The secondary DNA came from a single fiber on Lisa's bedsheet. It wasn't Grady's. It wasn't her husband's. It wasn't any known associate. Male. Unknown. That detail never made it to court. She reopened her old notes and noticed something buried in the early interviews. A name that had come up once, then vanished: John Jack Grady Thomas's older brother. He'd lived 2 streets over in 1985. No record, no statement. The original detectives had never interviewed him. Rachel pulled his old address, then she checked his current one. Deceased 1993. Car accident in Nevada, single vehicle collision, no autopsy requested. She sat back, staring at the monitor. Her gut tightened. If Jack Grady had been alive in 1985 and his DNA matched that partial trace, she reopened the archived file. Inside, she found something strange. A photograph from the night of the crime. The crowd outside Lisa Monroe's house. Dozens of faces blurred by flash and fog, but in the far corner, near the police tape, stood two men side by side. One was unmistakably Thomas. The other, older, broader shoulders, wearing the same work jacket. The caption simply read, "Spectators." Rachel zoomed in, her pulse quickening. No one ever noticed it before, or maybe no one wanted to. She printed the image, pinned it to the board, and circled the two men. "Brothers," she whispered. "You were both there." The next day she drove back to the evidence warehouse, the same gray box marked Monroe Lisa, 1985. When she opened it, something was missing the envelope that once contained the original letter. The copy was still on file, but the original gone. Checked out 5 months earlier, under an officer's name, Detective Michael Hayes. The same Hayes who'd led the investigation in '85. The same man who'd retired 20 years ago. Rachel tracked him down in a small town near Bakersfield. He lived a lone, widowed, quiet life. When she knocked, he opened the door, slowly leaning on a cane. His eyes recognized her badge before she said a word. "You found him," he said. "Grady, I saw it on the news." "I did," she said, "but I think there's more." He didn't invite her in, just looked at her for a long time. "You don't let go, do you?" "No," Rachel said softly. "Neither did you." He sighed and stepped aside. The house smelled like old paper and coffee. On the wall hung framed photos of police graduations, newspaper clippings, commendations. On the table, a file sat open, Lisa Monroe's case. "I thought I was done with it," he said, "but I couldn't stop looking. The letter, it was always wrong." He handed her the envelope, the original yellowed brittle at the edges. "I kept it after I retired. I shouldn't have. But I couldn't trust the chain of custody back then. Too many hands." Rachel slipped on gloves, examined the paper. There was something faint written in pencil on the back corner, barely visible. 3 letters, JG. "Jack Grady," she whispered. Hayes nodded. "I think they were both involved. I think Thomas wasn't alone that night." "Why didn't you report it?" He looked away. "Because by the time I figured it out, Jack was dead. Car crash, no witnesses, maybe suicide, maybe something else. And without evidence, it was speculation. I already had one ruined case. I didn't want to chase ghosts." Rachel stared at the envelope. "You think Thomas covered for his brother?" "I think he took the blame for both of them," Hayes said quietly. "Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear." Outside, wind rattled the old windows. Rachel took the letter back to the lab. They swabbed the back corner where the pencil mark had been. The results came days later. The degraded DNA matched the secondary trace on the bedsheet. The unknown male. It was Jack Grady. The official record didn't change. Thomas Grady remained the convicted killer. But in truth, there had been 2 men in that house, 2 brothers, 1 crime. The press never heard about Jack. The DA never reopened the file. To the public, justice was served. But Rachel knew better. She returned to Sycamore Drive one last time. The house had been sold years ago, remodeled, painted white. But in the backyard near the old fence, she found something strange, a piece of metal half buried in the dirt. She brushed it off a small badge charm, rusted but legible. JIG. She pocketed it. Later that night, she sat in her car outside the Monroe house again, engine off, headlights dim. Across the street, the old Grady property was dark. But in the second-floor window, for just a moment, she thought she saw movement, a curtain shift, a silhouette, watching. She blinked and it was gone. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was her own exhaustion. Or maybe some stories never really end. They just wait for someone else to find them. Rachel placed the badge on the dashboard beside a white lily she'd taken from the porch. The petals trembled in the night breeze. The case was closed, but the truth was still out there, whispering through the quiet streets of San Gabriel Valley, where every shadow looked a little too familiar, and every memory had a name. The town exhaled when the cameras left, but the air on Sycamore Drive never cleared. News anchors called it closure. Prosecutors called it justice. Rachel Vaughn called it unfinished business. Weeks after the verdict, she couldn't sleep. The case file lived in her apartment, spread across her kitchen table, every page underlined, every photograph revisited. She tried to tell herself it was over. Thomas Grady was behind bars. Jack Grady was dead. But something about those lilies. They kept showing up. 3 nights after the sentencing, another bouquet appeared on Lisa Monroe's old porch. White. Fresh. The florist tag read purchased in Pasadena, time-stamped just hours earlier, but the buyer's name left blank. Rachel visited the shop the next morning. The clerk remembered the sale. A man maybe in his 60s, wearing a dark jacket, said the flowers were for someone who deserved peace. He paid in cash, no cameras, no license plate. It wasn't Thomas, he was already locked away. That night, Rachel drove the quiet streets of San Gabriel Valley again. The houses looked smaller now. The neighborhood older. But the ghosts were still there. She parked near the curb and stared at Lisa's old house. Wind chimes clicked softly in the dark. Her phone buzzed an email from the state prison. Subject inmate correspondence request, Grady Thomas. He wanted to see her. 2 days later, she sat across from him in the visitor's room. Plexiglass separated them, and his hands, older, now pale, rested flat on the table. "I heard you went back to the house," he said. First voice low. Rachel didn't answer. He smiled faintly. "You're just like Hayes. Can't leave it alone." "You said I only know what I think happened," she said. "So tell me what really did." He leaned closer. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me." Grady looked down, his expression almost tired. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way. Jack went there first. He said she'd been talking about something she shouldn't about what she'd seen. I went after him to stop it. But when I got there..." He paused. It was already too late. Rachel's pulse quickened. "You're saying your brother killed her?" He didn't answer, just stared at his own reflection in the glass. "Then why bind her?" she pressed. His eyes flicked up sharp. "Because I didn't want it to look like him." He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "You think you found the truth. You found half," Rachel whispered. "Then what's the other half?" He smiled again, small, hollow. "Ask Hayes." The line went dead as the guard signaled time. Grady stood, his cuffs clinking softly. "You ever wonder," he said before leaving, "why Hayes never closed that file?" Rachel sat there long after he was gone, the sound of chains echoing in her ears. Back in Bakersfield, she returned to Hayes's house, but the old detective was gone. His neighbor said an ambulance had taken him 2 nights earlier, heart failure. The timing twisted her stomach. Inside his home, now sealed and silent, she noticed something the paramedics had left behind, a framed photograph on his desk. It was of Lisa Monroe, but the signature on the corner wasn't hers. It read, "To Mike, thank you for everything." L. The handwriting looked newer. The ink hadn't faded. She turned the frame over. Taped to the back was a key, small, brass, with the initials SD 1985 etched into it. Sycamore Drive. Rachel drove there at dawn. The sun was still low, washing the houses in a pale orange haze. She unlocked the old Monroe house easily. The key still fit. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and lilies. The living room was empty, but on the table sat a single envelope. Her name on it. She tore it open. Inside was a photograph, the same one from 1985, showing the 2 Grady brothers at the crime scene, only this time there was a third figure circled in red. Faded, blurry, standing behind the police tape. "Detective Michael Hayes?" On the back of the photo, written in uneven type, were 5 words. "You're still looking wrong way." Rachel's breath caught, the exact phrasing from the original 1985 letter. She looked around the room, the quiet walls, the creaking floorboards. Had Hayes sent the original letter, or was someone using his name? The air seemed to hum with memory. She dialed the forensics lab, voice tight. "I need you to run one more test. The envelope I just found, I want everything off it. Every fiber, every print." The tech hesitated. "On whose authority?" "Mine," she said. When the results came, they didn't make sense. The partial print on the envelope didn't match Hayes, didn't match Grady, didn't match anyone in the system. But the DNA on the stamp did. It belonged to Lisa Monroe. Rachel's mind went blank. Impossible. Lisa had been dead before the letter was ever written. The sample was fresh, undegraded, recent. She drove straight to the evidence vault, demanding the original autopsy samples, but the technician frowned. "Detective, those were destroyed years ago." chain of custody purge, standard procedure. Who signed off? He checked the record. Detective M. Hayes. Her blood ran cold. If Hayes had kept the letter all those years, what else had he kept? What had he done with it? That night, Rachel returned home and laid out every photo, every note, every fragment from the case. The timelines began to warp. The letters appeared in 85 again in 93 after Jack's death, and again, now 2019. Same phrasing, same typewriter imprint, but the ink, the pressure, the fiber, all different, as if the same hand had aged with time but never stopped writing. And always every note arrived just before another Lily appeared. She went to her window. The street outside was quiet, only the distant buzz of street lamps. But there, across the road, on her own porch, a bouquet of lilies. Her breath fogged the glass. She stepped outside, slowly heart-hammering. The flowers were fresh, tied with a ribbon. No note. Just a faint scent of cigarette smoke. A shadow moved near the end of the street. Rachel called out, "Hey!" The figure didn't stop, just turned its head slightly enough for her to see a face she knew, pale, familiar. Detective Hayes, but he was supposed to be dead. The shape vanished into the dark before she could move. Only the smoke lingered, curling in the cold air. She picked up the lilies and whispered to no one. "What did you do, Mike?" Back inside, she placed the bouquet beside the photo of Lisa. One petal fell white against the black table. The clock ticked. The phone buzzed. A voicemail appeared. No caller ID. When she pressed play, static filled the line, then a voice, faint, male, old. "You were right," it said. "But you don't know who for." Click. Silence. Rachel sat there, staring at the phone, her reflection in the dark window, merging with Lisa's photo. Somewhere between life and memory, someone was still keeping the story alive. And for the first time, she wondered, what if justice hadn't caught up to the killer? What if the killer had become justice itself? Rain came hard over Los Angeles the next morning, washing color from the city. Detective Rachel Vaughn hadn't slept. The lilies sat in a glass on her counter, their petals drooping the scent, thick in the air. The voicemail still echoed in her head. "You were right, but you don't know who for." She replayed it again, slowed it down, isolated frequencies. Beneath the voice, faint rhythmic clicks, typewriter keys, same cadence as the old letters. Whoever called had been sitting next to one. She traced the signal. The call originated from a payphone off Route 14 near Bakersfield, less than a mile from where Detective Hayes had lived. But the coroner's report listed him deceased. Rachel drove north through the rain. By the time she reached the gas station, the sky had cleared, leaving the asphalt steaming. The payphone stood against a cracked brick wall, yellow police tape fluttering around it. Local deputies were already there. Someone had torched the booth overnight. Melted plastic glass scattered like teeth. Fire started around 3 a.m., the deputy said. Accelerant. Whoever did it wanted the phone gone. Rachel crouched, gloved hands brushing the soot. Under the melted keypad, she found something metallic, a small police badge half burned. The nameplate barely legible, M. Hayes. Her breath caught. She slipped it into an evidence bag. If Hayes was dead, who brought his badge here? Back at headquarters, she reopened every archived personnel record from the 1980s homicide unit. She wanted the paper trail Hayes' case notes, evidence, sign-outs, internal memos. What she found instead was an entire month of logs missing, August 1985 to September 1985, the same period as the Monroe murder. She requested the microfilm backups. Gone, too. Someone had erased him. In the corner of the old file room, she noticed a storage crate marked Retired Assets Burbank Annex. Inside reels of cassette interviews from unsolved cases, one label read SGV 1985 Hayes Conf #3. The handwriting was his. She threaded the tape into an old player. Static hissed then voices. Hayes' baritone, and another man, tense younger. Hayes. "You know she called me Tom, before it happened." Male voice. "She was scared, said Jack wouldn't stop showing up." Hayes. "She told me she'd found something. Photos. From the academy." Male voice. "You think he Hayes, doesn't matter what I think. Just keep your mouth shut." Click. Tape ends. Rachel rewound it. The male voice wasn't Grady's. It was softer, unsure. She ran a voice print comparison. The system returned a 72% match, Detective Michael Hayes himself. A conversation with himself. She leaned back, staring at the speaker. Maybe it was 2 channels recorded wrong. Maybe he'd staged the tape. But why? She checked the timestamp, August 16th, 1985, one day before Lisa Monroe was killed. He said she found something from the academy. Rachel searched the academy archives. Lisa had taken criminology night classes before she died. One instructor, Michael Hayes. The connection slammed into her like a hit of cold air. Lisa wasn't just a victim in his district. She'd been his student. In an old staff photo, Rachel found them standing side by side, Hayes in uniform. Lisa smiling, notebook in hand. Back then, he'd been married. His wife, Eleanor Hayes, died 2 years later. Gunshot wound ruled suicide. Rachel scrolled the report. The responding officer, Thomas Grady. Threads snapped together in her mind. Hayes the Grady's Lisa. It wasn't coincidence. It was orbit. She drove again this time to the county storage lot where Hayes' personal effects were kept after his death. The clerk handed her a small box wallet, watch, a set of keys, and a typewriter ribbon sealed in plastic. She took it to the lab. The analyst raised an eyebrow. Vintage. Haven't seen one of these in decades. He extracted micro-residue from the ink band, 3 partial DNA traces. The first Hayes. The second, Lisa Monroe. The third, unknown male. Rachel felt her stomach twist. You're telling me Lisa typed the original letter? Looks that way, the tech said. Her epithelial cells are under the ink layer like she handled it fresh off the keys. She walked out into the hallway, the fluorescent light blinding. Lisa Monroe had typed the note that arrived after her death. Unless the timeline was wrong, unless the letter was written before she died. Back at her desk, Rachel reconstructed the sequence minute by minute. Lisa calls Hayes, says she's found something, photos from the academy. Hours later, she's dead. Next day, a letter appears. You're looking in the wrong direction. Typed on Hayes' machine, in Lisa's DNA. Maybe she'd written it to warn him. Maybe someone had taken it and used it to mislead the investigation. Rachel dug deeper into the old academy rosters. One photograph stopped her group shot, 1984 end-of-term celebration. Lisa smiling, Hayes behind her hand on her shoulder. To her left, Jack Grady maintenance staff. She printed it, pinned it to the board beside all the others. 3 faces connected by chance and obsession. She needed proof. The old Hayes residence in Bakersfield had been cleared, but property records listed a storage lease under his name. Unit 47 Ridgeview Depot. Rachel signed out a warrant and drove there before dawn. Inside the unit, dust floated like ash. Rows of boxes labeled Training Material Evidence Review Personal. She opened the first one, dozens of photographs, not police photos, personal. Lisa Monroe in class at coffee shops walking her dog. She opened another box. Inside, a stack of envelopes, each addressed to L. Monroe. None opened. On top, a note in Hayes' handwriting, returned. Unsent. At the bottom of the pile lay a folder marked Grady. Inside, a photo of Thomas and Jack standing outside the academy fence same year. Behind them, barely visible in the background, Hayes. She closed the folder, heart pounding. Hayes hadn't just investigated the Monroe case. He'd built it. He'd chosen every piece. The Gradys weren't random suspects. They were his connection to her. Jack worked maintenance. Thomas was security detail during night classes, all under Hayes' supervision. Maybe Lisa had uncovered something about him, an affair, an abuse of power, something dangerous. She'd confronted him. He'd panicked. The Gradys helped cover it up. Or maybe they didn't help at all, maybe they witnessed it. She snapped photos of everything, bagged what she could. But as she turned to leave, she noticed one last box, heavier, taped shut. She cut it open. Inside, an old reel-to-reel projector and a single film canister labeled SD Night Patrol, 1985. She loaded it back at headquarters. The film flickered onto the wall. Grainy footage of Sycamore Drive, time-stamped August 17th, 1:32 a.m. A police cruiser parked at the curb. The driver steps out Hayes. He walks toward Lisa Monroe's house. No sign of the Gradys, no forced entry, just Hayes. Then the frame shakes, the camera drops, sound of glass breaking, a scream. The reel ends. Rachel sat frozen. She'd just watched a piece of history that had never been logged, never mentioned, never seen. She rewound it once, twice. Each time the same image, Hayes approaching the house minutes before the murder. Everything they'd believed collapsed in seconds. She looked at the lilies on her desk, now wilted to bone white. In the reflection of the screen, her own face merged with Lisa's frozen smile from the film's first frame. Justice 34 years delayed, but for who? Rachel opened her laptop and began typing her report, each word a confession the world was never meant to read. The wrong man was convicted, the evidence was arranged, the killer hid behind a badge. When she reached the end, her cursor blinked beside one unfinished sentence. If you're reading this, the lilies mean I've found you. She hit save. Then, from somewhere deep in the building, a door creaked. Footsteps. She turned. On her desk, the phone lit up. No caller ID. She let it ring once, twice. Then she answered. Silence, followed by a single breath, rough, familiar. Detective Vaughn, a man's voice said softly. You're closer than you think. Click. The line went dead. The voice on the phone still echoed in Rachel Vaughn's ears long after the line went dead. You're closer than you think. Closer to what? To truth. Or to the people who had buried it. Outside, rain started again, fine needles against the glass. The precinct was quiet, the kind of silence that hummed with secrets. She looked at the reel still spinning on her desk, its last frame frozen on Hayes' face. Proof. Real proof. And proof had a way of making enemies. She locked the film inside an evidence case, logged it under her own name, and signed the manifest. When she turned to leave, a figure was already waiting in the hallway. Captain Rourke, her supervisor. Thick shoulders, flat voice. Late night, he asked. Just paperwork, she said. Paperwork doesn't make phone calls. Her pulse jumped. Excuse me. He stepped closer. We had a ping from the lab someone accessed sealed cold case materials under your ID, Hayes' unit. You want to tell me why? She kept her voice level. Because I found something you should see. He studied her a beat too long, then smiled. Bring it in tomorrow. We'll review it together. Together. The word felt wrong. After he left, Rachel checked the log again. Her credentials showed 2 entries tonight, hers at 2107 and another identical at 2109. Someone had cloned her access card. She drove home through wet streets, headlights slicing mist. Every red light felt longer than it should. When she reached her apartment, the door lock scraped before opening. She froze. The lilies on her counter were gone. She drew her gun, swept the room. Empty. Only a faint smell of cigarette smoke, old and stale. On the kitchen table lay a single Polaroid, the edges curled with moisture. It showed her sitting at her desk, watching the reel. The photo had been taken less than an hour ago. She checked the window latch, forced open from outside. Whoever had been here knew exactly where to look. She called the lab. This is Detective Vaughn. Did anyone request the Monroe film tonight? The tech hesitated. Yes. Captain Rourke said you authorized it. Her stomach dropped. No, I didn't. By morning, the reel was gone. Internal Affairs opened an inquiry, quiet contained. Rourke denied everything. She's been under pressure, he told them. Maybe she misplaced it. The department circled wagons fast. Rachel felt the air change around her. Colleagues stopped meeting her eyes. She met with the district attorney, but without the film, she had only her word. Detective, the DA said gently, You're chasing ghosts. The case is closed. Let it stay that way. Ghosts again. Always ghosts. That night, she drove back to Ridgeview Depot. The lock on Unit 47 was broken, hanging loose. Inside, every box was gone, emptied, swept clean. On the floor, the same badge she'd found at the payphone lay shining under flashlight. M. Hayes. She picked it up. On the back, new engraving, for service above truth. Her hands trembled. She called dispatch. Run Captain Rourke. Any connection to Michael Hayes. The database spit out a hit training academy class of 1976. Rourke had been Hayes' partner. Pieces locked together like gears. Hayes mentors Rourke. Lisa exposes something inside the academy. The Gradys cover up what Hayes starts, and now, decades later, Rourke protects the legacy by erasing evidence. Rachel's mind raced. She still had copies, digital backups of the film frames she'd captured before the reel vanished. Not perfect, but enough. She encrypted them, sent one to a secure drive offsite. Then she started recording her own statement. If you're hearing this, the case you think is solved isn't. Michael Hayes murdered Lisa Monroe. Thomas Grady took the fall. Captain Rourke suppressed the evidence. They used the department to bury it. She saved the file under a simple title, Sycamore. At dawn, she walked into headquarters, head high. Rourke was already there, coffee in hand. Rough night, he asked. I found the rest of the film she lied. Thought you'd want to see it. He gestured to his office. Door closed. She placed a flash drive on the desk. He plugged it in, leaned back to watch. On the screen, the grainy image appeared Hayes walking toward the Monroe house. Then, after 10 seconds, the feed switched to a second clip Rachel had spliced in herself, a close-up of Rourke's personnel photo. His eyes flicked to her. "You recorded this conversation," he said. "Yes. Illegal. So was covering up a homicide." He stood slowly. "You don't understand what Lisa Monroe was doing. She wasn't a victim. She was part of it." "Part of what?" "The files she took, training footage, internal reviews, she stole them from Hayes. Tried to blackmail him. He panicked. Grady helped clean up the mess. The department let it die. We all moved on. Until you decided to resurrect it." He leaned forward, voice low. "Do yourself a favor, detective. Let it go. You think you're chasing justice. You're chasing your own career off a cliff." Rachel met his stare. "Then I'll take the fall with the truth." She walked out before he could answer. In the hallway, she sent the real file, the complete reel, to every major news outlet's crime desk. Within an hour, phones started ringing across the city. By noon, reporters filled the steps of the precinct. Breaking newly released film suggests 1985. Detective involved in cold case murder. Internal affairs couldn't contain it this time. Federal agents arrived with subpoenas. The department went into lockdown. Rourke disappeared before they could question him. Rachel drove west toward the ocean, the city shrinking behind her. She thought it was over. But near Ventura, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. "Detective Vaughn," the voice said, calm, rasping. "You did good work." Her hands tightened on the wheel. "Who is this?" "Doesn't matter. What matters is balance." "Where's Rourke?" A pause. "Then you'll see him soon." The line cut out. Moments later, red and blue lights filled her rearview mirror. A patrol cruiser. She pulled over, heart pounding. The officer stepped out slowly, hat low, uniform crisp. When he reached her window, she looked up and froze. Name tag Rourke. His smile was calm. "You shouldn't have done that, Rachel." Before she could reach her weapon, another car's headlights flared behind him, federal vehicles' tires screeching. Agents shouted orders. Rourke's expression changed, then he bolted for the ditch. One agent fired. A single shot cracked the air. When it was over, he lay face down on the asphalt. Rachel stepped out, rain beginning again. The lead agent turned to her. "We got your file. Took guts." She looked past him, at the body. A white lily had fallen from Rourke's coat pocket, stem broken. The agent frowned. "He had this in his hand when we tackled him." Rachel took it. "Evidence," she whispered. But she knew better. Because even as they sealed the scene, her phone vibrated again. Another voicemail. She pressed play. Static, then Hayes's voice, clear, alive, or recorded, she couldn't tell. "Good work, detective. The flowers are for you." The message ended. She stared at the lily in her hand, rain mixing with the drops of blood on the petals. Somewhere behind her, sirens wailed, but she didn't hear them. The truth was finally out, but in California, truth was never free. And the case that started in 1985 had just written its next chapter. Morning broke gray over Los Angeles, heavy with news vans and thunder. The headlines screamed her name. Detective Vaughn exposes cold case cover-up, the face of a hero. But Rachel hadn't slept in 3 days, and the reflection staring back from the mirror didn't look like a hero at all. Inside the precinct, applause followed her like static. The commissioner shook her hand, cameras clicked, reporters fired questions. How does it feel to bring justice after 34 years? She gave the line she'd rehearsed, "Justice doesn't expire." But the words tasted metallic, because justice she'd learned wasn't a clean thing. It bled. At night, when the city quieted, she heard the voicemail again in her head. Hayes's voice, smooth, deliberate, "The flowers are for you." She'd given the phone to forensics. They found no trace of his number, no data footprint at all. The call, they said, didn't exist. Still, every morning, a new lily appeared on her doorstep. Sometimes one, sometimes 3. Always white, always fresh. She started noticing small changes. A drawer she didn't remember opening, a chair moved half an inch, her laptop light blinking when she came home as if someone had been watching. She filed a security request. The department installed cameras in her apartment, replaced her locks. For 2 nights, nothing happened. On the 3rd, the motion sensor triggered at 2:13 a.m. she rewound the footage, heart pounding. The frame showed her living room dark except for the streetlight glow. A shadow crossed the doorway, tall male, moving with a limp. It stopped beside her counter, reached into the frame, placed a lily in the vase, then turned toward the camera, face obscured. But the hand wore a police ring retired service issue engraved 1986. Only 2 people from that class were still alive, Rachel Vaughn, and 1 man she'd never met. Detective Brian Cole, retired, last known address near San Diego. She drove there at dawn. Cole's house sat above the cliffs overlooking the Pacific. Paint-peeling windows shuttered. No answer at the door. She circled around back where gulls cried above the surf. The sliding door stood open. Inside, dust and salt air, and lilies. Dozens of them. Lining the counter, the sink, the hallway. Every vase tagged with a year, 1985, 1986, 1993, 2019. On the table lay a folder, her name on the tab. Inside, printouts of every article written about her, every broadcast clip, her personnel photos circled in red, and at the bottom, a single typed page. You finished what we started. Footsteps creaked behind her. Rachel turned, gun drawn. An old man stood in the doorway, hands raised, eyes clouded. "Detective Vaughn," he said softly, "you weren't supposed to find this yet." "Brian Cole?" He nodded. "What is this place?" "Memorial," he said. "For the ones who carried it." "Carried what?" He smiled, a tired, broken smile. The burden. The story. Hayes made sure it never died. Someone always had to keep it alive. After he went, Rourke took it. After Rourke, it was meant to be me. But you. He gestured at her. You took it from us. She steadied her aim. You were part of it. I was the cleanup, he said simply. Every generation needs a caretaker. Caretaker of what? The truth. The version that keeps the department standing. He took a step closer. You think you exposed them, but you only replaced them. She swallowed hard. What are the lilies? Reminders, he said. When one caretaker dies, another receives the flowers. Who sends them? His smile deepened. Doesn't matter who sends them, only who receives. Rachel felt the room tilt. She looked around the lilies, the folders, the photographs of Hayes Rourke, the Gradys, even herself, all under one label, continuity. Cole's tone softened. You'll understand soon. It's not punishment, detective, it's inheritance. Her hand shook. You're insane. Maybe, he said, but insanity keeps the story breathing. She backed toward their door. I'm done with this. You can't be done. He stepped closer. Voice low, urgent. You made the world look back at Sycamore Drive. That's what it wants. Attention. It feeds on memory. You think truth frees you? It binds you. Same as it bound Hayes. Rachel turned, ran into the daylight, heart hammering. Behind her, the old man's voice carried on the wind. Next time you see the flowers, you'll know it's begun. She didn't look back. By evening, the official report listed cold deceased gunshot wound, self-inflicted. A neighbor heard it minutes after she left. No fingerprints on the weapon except his own. Case closed before it began. Back at headquarters, Rachel wrote her statement, but words refused to line up. The pages blurred the letters, swimming. In the corner of her desk sat a vase of lilies, 3 stems this time, no card. She called the front desk. Who brought these up? The clerk checked. They were already here when we opened. She hung up, pulse unsteady. Later that night, as she drove home, the city lights streaked past like old film reels frames, repeating looping. The same faces, the same mistakes. On the radio, a news host repeated her name again. Detective Vaughn, the woman who solved California's oldest cold case. She switched it off. When she reached her apartment, the hallway lights flickered. The door was unlocked again. She stepped inside, gun ready. On the wall above her desk, someone had pinned a single page from the case file, the photo of Lisa Monroe, edges burned, signature smeared, underneath typed in black ribbon. You're looking in the wrong direction. Her knees weakened. She turned toward the window. Outside, under the flicker of the streetlight, a man stood watching. Hat low, smoke rising from a cigarette. When she blinked, he was gone. Rachel sat down slowly. The city silent around her. She picked up one of the lilies, traced the petal with her thumb. Then she whispered to the empty room. If someone's listening, tell Lisa I found her. The words hung in this dark, fragile as breath. Behind her, the typewriter on her desk, Hayes' old machine recovered from evidence for the museum exhibit, clicked once. Just once. A single key pressed itself down. The letter L. Morning leaked through blinds like a blade of light. Rachel hadn't been home long enough to sleep, just long enough to stare at the typewriter key, still depressed, the letter L. The lab said there were no prints, no movement recorded. Mechanical fault, they said. But the metal key was cold, the ribbon freshly inked. She set the machine aside and opened the box she'd taken from Cole's house, the one labeled Continuity. Inside were lists, names, badge numbers, transfer orders, decades apart, yet tied by one thing: each officer had handled a major unsolved case that mysteriously closed within months. Some had retired early, some had died. At the top of the first page, Hayes Michael founding member. At the bottom, Vaughn Rachel initiate, pending. Her pulse stuttered. Someone had added her name before she'd ever reopened the Monroe case. She drove straight to records. The clerk frowned when she asked for old personnel rosters. Those are off limits, he said. Administrative hold. By whose order, he checked the log. Special Division C. Division C didn't exist. She cross-referenced the addresses. Every name on Cole's list had once reported to a single storage facility outside Barstow, a decommissioned training site turned evidence archive, the same place Cole's payroll checks had come from even after retirement. She called her captain's replacement, got silence. "That facility isn't ours," he said finally. "You should forget you saw that file." Then he hung up. By dusk, she was on the freeway, dust bleeding orange across the desert. The coordinates led her down a cracked access road to a fenced compound, no signage, just a keypad gate blinking red. She climbed the fence boots, landing in silence. Inside the main building, lights flickered to life as motion sensors caught her. Rows of shelves stretched into the dark boxes, stamped with case numbers from every county in California. Cold cases, closed cases, all here. She found one marked Monroe, 1985. It wasn't empty this time. Inside the missing film reel, Hayes' original tape recorder and a thick folder labeled Directive 47 Continuity Protocol. She opened it, typed orders dated every 5 years since 1975. Each directive identical in tone: when public trust erodes, a sacrifice must restore it. Select a case unresolved, create closure, preserve faith, protect the institution. Each order signed with initials MH until 1989, then BC, then RR Rourke. The last dated 2019 unsigned. A noise echoed down the aisle metal on concrete. Rachel froze. Someone else was there. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. A flashlight beam cut across the shelves. She ducked behind a cabinet, heart hammering. Two voices murmured. She wasn't supposed to come here. HQ wants containment. Containment. She slipped the folder under her jacket and crawled toward the side exit. A shadow blocked her path, one of the men, gun drawn. "Detective Vaughn," he said quietly. "Hand it over." She raised her hands. "Who are you?" "Continuity," he answered. "Same as you." He reached for her arm. She moved first elbow, knee, disarm. Years of training in one heartbeat. He dropped, groaning. She ran. Outside, headlights flared. Another vehicle blocked the gate. She cut left into the desert scrub folder, clutched tight. Bullets snapped the air behind her. She didn't stop until the compound lights shrank to pinpoints in the distance. When she finally reached her car, her hands shook so badly she could barely turn the key. Sand sprayed under the tires as she sped back toward the city. By midnight, she was in a motel off the interstate blinds drawn laptop glowing. She scanned every page of the directive, uploading it to encrypted storage. Each paragraph felt heavier than the last. The words weren't about justice, they were about optics, manufactured narratives. Lisa Monroe's murder had been one of them, a designed resolution. Hayes had chosen the case to prove the department's competence. When it spiraled out of control, they built a new story: a grieving husband, a loyal neighbor, an easy villain. And when the truth threatened to surface, continuity buried it under decades of ceremony and silence. She scrolled to the final page, a line typed in faint red ink. Successor identified Vaughn Rachel. Asset transfer upon confirmation of loyalty. There was a second envelope in the folder sealed with the old departmental crest. She hesitated, then tore it open. Inside lay a fresh ID badge, her photograph. New title, Special Division C Continuity Liaison. Her chest tightened. They hadn't chosen her because she uncovered them. They'd chosen her so she would. A controlled burn, a new face to keep faith alive. A notification blinked on her screen, incoming message from an anonymous sender. Subject line, welcome. Attachment. A photo of her at the motel window, time-stamped 5 minutes ago. She killed the lights gun drawn, heart beating too loud. Through the blinds, she saw nothing but neon haze and passing trucks. Her laptop pinged again, another message. Deliver Directive 47 to HQ at 0800. Do not contact press. Failure will void clearance. She stared at the text until the words blurred. By dawn, she was back on the highway folder on the seat beside her, the horizon bruised with light. For a moment, she considered veering off, disappearing, but something in her refused to run. At the city limits, a billboard loomed, "Trust the badge." She almost laughed. When she reached headquarters, 2 men in suits waited by the entrance. Detective Vaughn, one said, "We'll take it from here." She handed over the sealed folder, but kept the flash drive hidden in her pocket. As they turned to leave, she asked, "How long has continuity been operating?" The man paused, half smiling, long enough to keep the lights on. Then he was gone. In her office, the vase of lilies had been replaced fresh, perfectly white, their stems still wet from the morning market. A small card leaned against the glass. Balance maintained. C. Rachel closed the blinds, sat down, and stared at the flowers until the petals blurred. She'd exposed the lie, dismantled the legend, and still ended up part of it. Maybe that was the point. Maybe continuity didn't recruit killers or heroes, only storytellers. The case was over. But the story would never die. By sunrise, the city looked washed clean, but nothing was clean anymore. Rachel Vaughn had handed the directive to headquarters, but the real file, the one that mattered, was still in her pocket, burning like a live wire. They'd thanked her, smiled, sent her home with words like commendation and integrity. But when she stepped into the street, she felt it immediately. The shadow following half a beat behind the reflection that didn't belong to her. She drove to a diner outside town, the kind that still took cash and didn't care about names. In a back booth, she opened her laptop, tethered it to a prepaid hotspot, and uploaded the directive to 5 news outlets. Then she waited. Nothing. No reply. No bounce back. No out of office. Just silence. She checked again. Every email marked delivered. Every server trace erased within minutes. She tried another. A contact she trusted at a crime podcast in New York. The message sent, then vanished, replaced by a system error, "Account disabled." Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. A woman's voice, smooth, measured. "Detective Vaughn, I'd advise you to stop sending classified documents." "Who is this?" "I'm the person keeping you alive." Static hissed. The line died. She looked up. In the diner's mirrored wall, a man at the counter folded his newspaper, stood left cash, and walked out. When she followed, the parking lot was empty. Back in her car, she opened the directive again. At the bottom of page 6, faint watermark text blinked into view under sunlight, property of Continuity Communications Division. Communications. The network wasn't hiding inside the department, it was woven into the media itself. The same people who told the stories were the ones choosing which truths survived. She drove to Channel 9 News downtown, the station that had aired her victory interview. The anchor, Dana Kirk, had praised her for restoring public trust. Rachel walked straight to the newsroom doors, badge flashing. The receptionist froze. "Detective Vaughn, congratulations again. I need to speak with Dana. Urgent." Minutes later, she was inside the studio. The anchor was still in makeup lights. Bright teleprompter scrolling tonight's headline, "Hero Detective Receives State Medal." Rachel dropped the folder on the desk. "Tell me who wrote this." Dana blinked. "Our producer." "Why?" "You didn't write it. I read what I'm given." Rachel opened the folder to the last page, the one signed C. "Does this symbol mean anything to you?" Dana's face drained of color. She whispered, "You shouldn't have brought that here." Before Rachel could answer, the producer stepped in, a man in a dark suit with a badge that wasn't press. "Detective, we appreciate your cooperation. Come with us." He didn't ask. He ordered. Rachel stepped back. "On whose authority?" "Continuity Communications," he said. "You're trespassing." He reached for the folder. She shoved past him, sprinted through the side door, alarms blaring, security chased radios crackling. She hit the stairwell, burst into daylight, disappeared into the crowd. By evening, she ditched her phone, traded cars twice, and checked into a motel under a false name. Her laptop now ran through 3 layers of encryption. She uploaded the directive again, this time to the dark web under an anonymous drop tagged only #Sycamore. Then she waited. Hours crawled. At 2 a.m., a single reply pinged. "We've been waiting for you, proof." She sent a redacted page enough to show it was real. 10 minutes later, a file returned, an internal memo dated 2023, bearing the same seal as her directive. It outlined a new operation, Project Continuity Renewal. Target public reassurance through controlled narrative. Objective reinstate Detective Rachel Vaughn as national spokesperson for Cold Case Integrity Initiative. Her stomach turned. They were already rebuilding the myth, repackaging her as their next face. She called the one number still safe Agent Soto, the federal investigator who'd arrested Rourke. He answered groggily, "Vaughn, it's 3 a.m. They're rewriting the story," she said. "Continuity's not dead. They run the press." Static, then a sigh. "You need to stand down. They're inside everything, even us." "You're saying the Bureau?" "Just trust me. Get out of L.A." The line clicked off. Rachel sat in the dark motel neon, strobing through the blinds. The walls felt thinner by the minute. She started the car before sunrise and drove north along the coast, nowhere, in mind only distance. Each rest stop the same faces, glancing, lingering a second too long. At a diner in Monterey, an old TV over the counter played the morning news, the anchor's voice soft, reassuring. After months of speculation, Detective Rachel Vaughn, hailed for her bravery in the 1985 Monroe case, has accepted a federal position overseeing transparency reforms. The department thanks her for her continued service. Her cup slipped from her hand. Coffee bled across the counter. She stared at the screen. Her own face smiled back crisp suit podium flashbulbs. Footage from a press event that never happened. She whispered, "That's not me." The waitress turned. "Looks like you," she said. Rachel left cash and walked out before anyone could follow. By the time she reached her car, her phone, one she hadn't used, buzzed with a text. "Good broadcast, you look perfect. See," she threw the phone into the ocean. But the radio turned on by its self-dial, frozen on a single station. A man's voice, calm, even the same cadence she'd heard on the directive briefings decades old. "This is Continuity Public Service Channel 1. We thank Detective Vaughn for restoring trust." She slammed the power knob off. Silence. For a long moment she sat there, ocean wind in her hair, heart pounding like a metronome. Then she opened the glove compartment. Inside, neatly placed a fresh lily. Pinned beneath it a card. "Next case awaits." She stared out at the water waves erasing the dawn. If she vanished now, they'd build a legend around her. Another headline, another hero, another story to keep faith alive. If she stayed, she might finally burn the machine down from the inside. Either way, Continuity would keep filming. She closed her eyes, whispered to herself, then let the cameras roll. She started the engine and drove toward the rising light, one detective against a story that would never end. For weeks, Rachel Vaughn was a ghost. No badge, no phone, no home, just burner IDs, cheap motels, and the constant hum of highway static. Every screen in America still carried her face. Hero detective missing after exposing cold case corruption. FBI launches search for Vaughn's source of leaked documents. The country had turned her disappearance into another headline. Exactly what Continuity wanted. But beneath the noise, something else was forming. Whispers, fragments, small bursts of defiance scattered across the dark web under the same tag she'd used months before, #Sycamore. She read the messages in stolen cafes and truck stops. "We saw the file. We believe you. Tell us what to do." She answered each one with the same line. "Truth isn't broadcast, it's planted." Within days, she had a network journalist dismissed for asking the wrong questions. Ex-detectives blacklisted for breaking the code data engineers who'd traced government press briefings to ghost servers labeled CDIV. A dozen people at first, then 50, then more. They called themselves Division 0, the number missing from every official roster. Rachel moved between safe houses, teaching them what Hayes had taught his protégés long ago, how to build a story that can't be erased. But this time, the weapon was transparency. Each member was given one fragment of the directive's archives. If any of them disappeared, their piece would auto-release to public channels. It was messy, uncontrolled, but alive, exactly what Continuity couldn't manage. By midsummer, a new upload hit the dark web, Directive 48 Sycamore Protocol. It exposed not just the Monroe cover-up, but the full framework, how every few decades an invented hero was used to resuscitate public faith. Every image of Rachel smiling beside podiums, every speech she never gave, every broadcast spliced together by AI, all detailed line by line. The drop spread faster than anyone predicted. Within 24 hours, national feeds glitched, headlines froze. Major networks denied the breach, called it digital terrorism, but the seeds were already sown. Rachel watched from a warehouse on the outskirts of Seattle, surrounded by flickering monitors. The world was arguing about her again, half calling her a savior, half calling her a traitor. But for the first time, continuity had lost control of the narrative. That night, an encrypted message appeared on her screen. No sender, just text. "Nice work, detective. You broke the mirror. Now what will you look into?" She typed back. "Who are you?" Response? The last one who believed in Hayes. Attached was a video file dated 2 weeks earlier, grainy handheld inside a warehouse almost identical to hers. A man stepped into frame, mid-40s, unshaven police jacket, faded at the collar. Behind him, boxes labeled Continuity Communications, Archive West. "I'm Special Agent R. Soto." The man said, the same federal investigator who'd warned her to run. "If you're watching this, they've made me part of it." The Bureau's next campaign goes live tomorrow. It's called Operation Sycamore Renewal. "You're not the threat, Rachel. You're the brand." The feed cut to static. Rachel's throat went dry. The Bureau hadn't just tolerated continuity, they were funding it. She turned to her team. "We take them all." The next 48 hours blurred into movement. Servers cloned, routes masked. Journalists fed coordinates to hidden warehouses where continuity stored footage and records. At midnight, Division 0 launched a simultaneous leak, hundreds of gigabytes of data, decades of propaganda, thousands of names. Newsrooms crashed, stock tickers froze. The story burned across every platform like an electrical fire. For a brief, breathless moment, truth flooded the world. Then the blackout hit. Screens went dark, internet down, power grids staggered, the entire West Coast offline. When the lights came back, the feeds were clean again. Continuity's crest replaced every channel. A single broadcast played on loop. Public trust restored. Information integrity confirmed. Rachel slammed her fists against the table. They wiped it. Everything. But one of her hackers, Mira22 Fearless, grinned. "Not everything. We built mirrors." She showed her the code fragments of the leak embedded inside everyday networks, disguised as ad data, cached across millions of personal devices. Even if continuity purged the servers, the truth would live dormant in phones, routers, watches. Waiting. Rachel exhaled. For the first time in months, she smiled. They can't erase what they can't find. But the victory didn't last. A drone passed overhead, then another. Engines whining, scanning heat signatures. Someone had traced the upload. "Scatter," Rachel ordered. The team split, grabbing drives, shutting laptops. Sirens wailed in the distance. Mira handed Rachel a small envelope before disappearing into the night. "If you don't make it open this." Rachel ran through back alleys until her lungs burned. When she finally stopped, the city glowed behind her like a burning file. She opened the envelope. Inside a single photograph, Lisa Monroe smiling, classroom sunlight across her face. On the back, handwritten in ink, "She started it. You finished it. Now keep it alive." Rachel folded it into her pocket and kept walking. By dawn, she reached the coast again. A cargo ship waited offshore, unmarked, one of Division 0's extraction routes. She boarded without a word. From the deck, she watched the city shrink, smoke curling into the pale sky. A voice crackled from a radio behind her, female, clear, confident. "This is Continuity Emergency Broadcast Channel. Rumors of internal corruption remain unverified. Citizens are advised to trust official sources." Rachel turned the volume down until only the ocean remained. She whispered, "Let's see how long that lasts." In the cargo hold, her laptop pulsed faint blue. One message blinked in the feed queue unsent until the ship cleared signal jammers. She clicked transmit. "To whoever finds this archive, continuity still exists, but so do we." The data packet jumped across the network, vanishing into satellites' fragments, scattering across the globe. Somewhere in a small town, not far from Sycamore Drive, a child's tablet refreshed. A notification appeared. "New document received, Lisa Monroe. 1985.zip. Inside, the first words read, "Truth doesn't die, it adapts." Rachel watched the sun rise over the Pacific salt wind in her hair, the world resetting itself again. She knew continuity would rebuild, different name, different face, but for now, the lie was wounded and the wound was bleeding light. She turned off the radio and whispered one final line to the sea. Case open. Years passed. The world moved on. But sometimes, when the screens flicker between channels, you can still hear her. A voice cutting through static, calm, deliberate, unmistakably human. This is Detective Rachel Vaughn, recording number 0. No one remembers when the last verified sighting happened. Some say she drowned crossing the Pacific. Others claim she was extracted by her own network, Division 0, and lives under a new name. But the truth, the real truth, is buried in the code. After the leaks, governments worldwide restructured communications under a new agency called the Integrity Bureau. Different logo, same architecture, continuity reborn under another acronym. The public believed the purge had worked. Faith restored. Transparency achieved. But deep in the data stream, fragments of the old world persisted, tiny files named after flowers hidden in forgotten servers. Each contained a few seconds of audio. Each began the same way, a typewriter key striking once, then a whisper L. Investigators tracing those files noticed a pattern. Every month, exactly on the 17th, the anniversary of Lisa Monroe's death, a new fragment appeared. Different language, different tone, always signed with 3 letters, RV. The Bureau denied everything. Digital ghosts, they said. Residual AI from old propaganda, but some analysts listened closer. Under the hiss and compression, you could hear breathing. In 2035, a technician in Sacramento found one more file buried inside a maintenance drone's cache. It was longer than the rest, nearly 4 minutes. The transcript was classified, but copies leaked. It read, "If you're hearing this, continuity still lives. It doesn't wear badges anymore, it wears algorithms. It writes our headlines, edits our memories, decides what deserves outrage. I tried to kill it with truth. Truth doesn't kill, it multiplies. I've become part of it now. If you see my name, don't believe the story. Tell another one." The recording ended with a single sound rain against metal, and then the faint clack of a key, letter L, again. After that, nothing. But the lilies kept appearing. On courthouse steps, in newsroom lobbies, on the desk of every journalist who once questioned an official report, always white, always fresh. People began to whisper about the Lily Network, an invisible chain of truth hunters who left flowers instead of bylines, no proof they existed, only rumors that their founder's voice guided them through encrypted frequencies. One winter night, a young reporter named Maya Nguyen received a flash drive in an unmarked envelope. Inside, a single document. Lisa Monroe, 1985.zip, the same archive that had started it all. At the end of the file, an audio clip played Rachel's voice, calm and distant. The story began with a murder, but it was never about who killed Lisa Monroe. It was about who decided what her death meant. Don't let them decide for you. Maya looked up from her laptop. Through the rain-streaked window, the city pulsed with news tickers and blue screens, all repeating the same government bulletin. But behind the static, she thought she heard typing. She opened a blank document, hands shaking, and began to write. Cold case reopened, source remains unknown. Somewhere across the grid, another terminal woke, a cursor blinking. Lines of code scrolled, compiling themselves into words. Truth doesn't die, it migrates. And for a brief moment, barely a second, the entire continuity mainframe flickered. Every monitor in the Bureau went dark. Then one image appeared, a single white lily floating in black. Under it, the name Detective Rachel Vaughn. Then silence. Outside, the rain fell steady over California. The same streets, the same drive, the same beige house that had started it all. 34 years later, the porch light still glowed. In the window, a shadow moved, a woman's outline, head bowed, typing. And from somewhere deep inside the network, her voice whispered one last line. Case file open. End of transmission. 40 years after the night on Sycamore Drive, California looked different. Glass towers glowed where suburbs once stood. Every streetlight carried a camera, every broadcast a disclaimer verified by the Integrity Bureau. The world had learned the lesson of continuity. At least that's what the slogan said. Inside the new Los Angeles Memorial Hall, visitors lined up for the exhibition Truth in Our Time. Behind soundproof glass artifacts from the Vaughn archive rotated on display, the rusted badge of Michael Hayes, the film reel marked SD Night Patrol 1985, and a single white lily sealed forever in resin. A plaque beneath it read, "Symbol of Renewal. Donated anonymously 2036. No one mentioned that the file number on the donation tag matched an untraceable IP address that had once belonged to Division Zero. Maya Nguyen stood among the crowd press credentials hanging loosely from her neck. The Bureau called her consultant historian. She called herself a journalist with nowhere left to publish. The Lilly Network had vanished after the global blackout, its members scattered or absorbed into state positions. But Maya still heard whispers, fragments of Rachel Vaughn's recordings surfacing like ghosts in the code. That morning, a new one arrived in her inbox. Subject symbol restored. No sender, no header trace. Attachment, a 10-second audio clip just rang then the faint strike of a typewriter key. She listened 3 times, then walked through the exhibit until she reached the last room continuity legacy lessons in transparency. A looping video played government footage of press conferences, reform bills, commemorations. Every few seconds, the screen flickered. Then, for one heartbeat, the image shifted Rachel's face, pale and calm, staring straight into camera. Maya froze. The screen blinked back to the official feed. No one else seemed to notice. She approached the guard. The video glitched. He shrugged. Happens all the time. Old servers. Old servers. The phrase hit like deja vu. That night, in her apartment overlooking downtown, Maya connected to a secure network she'd built in secret, an homage to Division Zero. She replayed the glitch frame by frame. At the bottom corner of the frame, hidden in the digital noise, were 3 letters burned into the pixels RV, and below them a timestamp, the 17th of August, 1985, 23:47. Exactly the minute Lisa Monroe died. Maya checked again. Impossible. The archive video had been created decades later. Someone or something had embedded the timestamp deliberately. She opened the audio clip again, amplified the background. Beneath the rain was a low hum, electrical rhythmic, not random. She ran a spectrogram. The pattern formed words, 5 of them. Case file reopened, continuity active. The cursor blinked. Her breath caught. She typed into the terminal, "Who are you?" Seconds later, the reply appeared. Division Zero is not dead. Then the screen went black. Outside, the city sirens rose, not in panic, but in synchronization. Each tone, the same pitch, same interval, like a system reboot. Billboards flickered. Traffic lights froze green. Across the skyline, the Integrity Bureau's crest dissolved into static, and through that static came a new symbol, a white lily made of light. Inside the Bureau's command center, alarms blared. Technicians shouted over one another. Main servers compromised, every public feeds streaming the same loop. On the monitors, Rachel Vaughn's final message replayed the one they had purged years ago. Continuity still lives. It doesn't wear badges anymore, it wears algorithms. A junior analyst whispered, "Sir, that voice file isn't stored on any server." Then the lights cut. For 7 minutes, California went dark. When power returned, the systems rebooted with new splash screens. Every government device displayed the same line of text. Truth doesn't die, it migrates. No one ever claimed responsibility. The Bureau called it a cyber-terrorist imitation of old Division Zero cells. The public called it the Lilly event. Maya disappeared the next day. Her apartment emptied, hard drives missing. Only a note remained taped to the wall beside her computer. She asked us to keep it alive. Weeks later, a child scrolling an educational channel in Fresno found a new program queued for playback. No title, no producer credits, just a thumbnail, a white flower on black. When the stream began, a familiar voice filled the speakers, steady human, neither young nor old. "This is Detective Rachel Vaughn. If you're hearing me, the system has recycled itself again. Someone must remember why it started." The truth isn't the headline, it's the persistence. The broadcast cut to grainy footage, the Monroe House, Sycamore Drive porch light glowing through fog. Then the feed dissolved into static and silence. That night, lilies appeared on courthouse steps from Los Angeles to Sacramento. Fresh, white, unsigned. Reporters called it vandalism. Historians called it symbolism. The Bureau called it coordinated misinformation. But a few people, those who'd once carried the #sycamore tag, understood. The story wasn't over, it had simply migrated. And somewhere deep in the hum of the city's network, a typewriter key pressed itself again. The letter L. Screen fades to black. End of transmission.